Taking a look back at waves here, it looks like we did find somewhat of a bounce at the 786. We managed to move a little bit below before we found the bounce, but we did find a bounce, and ultimately it sent us back into the golden pocket, as well as the EMA ribbon on the daily. You can actually see here we didn't even manage to touch the EMA ribbon, which really isn't great. That just shows weakness, in my opinion. But overall, we did have a 45% move to the upside, which is pretty substantial. But in my opinion, I think this is probably just a relief bounce, especially since we have been moving down quite substantially for quite some time now. And as I've mentioned in my previous videos, especially on the longer time frames, we usually don't break the EMA ribbon to the upside on the first test. Here, you could argue this was a test for the most part, but even then, this somewhat of a test still sent us higher. So even if this is somewhat of a test, it could still send us lower. Ichimoku cloud really isn't saying much on the daily. It's pretty far away from us, but it is widening, so we'll just have to see what happens here in a couple weeks. You see something a little interesting here on the 4-hourly. We have actually broken the EMA ribbon to the upside, but then fell back below it. And you can see we actually got rejected off the Ichimoku cloud while it was relatively thin here. Now this isn't really all that great in my opinion, especially considering how thin the cloud is. Although you can see we haven't tested the Ichimoku cloud at all throughout this move to the downside. So I'm not entirely surprised this happened, although I was hoping for more of a kind of move like this to break through it to the upside. As usually Ichimoku clouds that move us lower indicate a trend is at play instead of sideways price action, which the Ichimoku cloud isn't very good at predicting. As you can see here, when we were trading sideways, the Ichimoku cloud really didn't offer much. So this could very well be indicative of a continuation to the downside. On the hourly, it actually looks like we have successfully broken above the Ichimoku cloud for the first time ever since the drop back here. If we zoom in here a little bit, it actually looks like we're trying to find support off the top of the red cloud here. But again, in my opinion, I think this was a relief bounce or a scam pump or wick or whatever you want to call it. So to sum things up here, I still think we're probably going to move back to this green box again. I was mentioning back here when we broke the red box of resistance to the upside that this is likely to reverse soon because we haven't really had much of a correction here. And that if we do start trading within this descending channel again, which you can see has happened, we could very well see a move back down to these lows yet again. And these lows could be anywhere from, $7.50 all the way up to $9, depending on whether we find support off the top of the box or more towards the bottom at this green line. Now, if we do see a continuation to the downside, I'm more inclined to believe that we'll probably find support at the top of this box, especially considering how quickly we have moved down. As you can see back here, when we had that move upward in a short amount of time, we had an extreme move downward in a short amount of time. So if we do make it to this $7 to $9 region, we could very well blast out of here. But that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to break all-time highs. So watch for much of a break below this low here, which is around 1180. If we do see it, we could very well move back down to the green box again, as I mentioned. If we find a bounce here, we really need to break this previous all-time high to the upside to continue the uptrend, as we would be setting higher highs and higher lows. But considering that we have broke most of our useful support to the downside, I'm expecting to use it as resistance on the upside. So if we do manage to see something like this, I would probably be looking out for a top or a potential top at around $23 where this green line and the 0.5 level on the Fibonacci retracement is. And this could just be a small rejection before we move higher, but it could be a good place to take some profits. So that's all I have for waves today. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and do so, as I try to post content daily. As always, this is not financial advice, and I'll see you in the next one.